Chip, you're first. Go ahead.
Talk about that, the preseason trip, how much that helped the team, not only players get to know each other, but coaches get to know the players better, vice versa.
Yeah, you know, we have so many different new players and then obviously have all new assistant coaches. It was a really, really rewarding trip for us for a lot of different reasons. I know a lot of times when you take the trip, people won't concentrate a lot on the basketball part of it. But for us, it was really learning about each other, my coaches getting a chance to see me, and I'm taking feedback from those guys as we go through the games, and you know, our guys are learning each other. You know, when you look at who we have, we got so many guys that transferred in, and the three guys that played the most last year was Young, Casey, and EB. Everybody else, even the ones who are returning, are new. So just you know, having a chance to find out a little bit more about each other, understanding how we want to play. It was good for us because we were able to get at least 10 practices in, and I think that was important, especially with a new team. And you know, I vote to have take these trips every year. If anybody else is part of the NCAA, that'd be a good thing, especially the way transfers goes now. You know, you don't know what your roster is going to look like from year to year, and I think it was good for us to get a little advantage, you know, kind of learning each other.
You've always liked a hybrid forward. How does Jack Clark fill that role?
Jack did a great job in Bahamas, and he's been one of those guys. And you're right, you know, it's the new breed of forward. You know, Jack will play some small forward for us, but I guess you could say small ball, but he's not really small because he's 6'8", 6'9", and so we will play him at some face-up power forward. I like him as a Torin Doran type of guy. But a little bit better shooter. And Torin Doran was really special for us my first year. Could drive it, he could shoot it, he could guard multiple positions, but we'll use Jack in that way.
Earlier this summer, you mentioned Terquavion had no choice to step up and become a leader. Obviously, there's good for you. You've got some veteran players this year, but how has he taken a step in that role?
He's done a good job. You know, he's always been our most. He always brings the most energy to our team. And he's still that way. You know, what I love about the kid, one of the reasons, obviously, that he wanted to come back to school, obviously wanted to play his way into a higher pick next year, but he loves school. He loves teammates. He loves, if you guys have ever seen him at the football games, he's jumping up and down, and he loves to tailgate. He loves everything about NC State, and so his leadership is because he cares about everybody that's around him, and he's done a great job embracing that. He's done a great job as the guy who's a leading scorer returning, embracing the new guys that are coming in also.
Would you consider him your foremost leader, or are there other players, even new players, who maybe are a little older and have stepped into that role?
Yeah, I would say, Luke, I would say that probably if you made me pick a guy who's going to be our main leader this year, I would say it's probably going to be Jaquel Joyner. I think Terquavion will lead in several different ways as he plays, and he will certainly have a voice. But if you made me pick a guy right now, I would say it probably would be Jaquel. You know, he's older. You know, he's the point guard on the team. He's been through it a little bit, and I think he's stepped up so far. And it's hard for transfers to come into any program because they're still trying to figure out their way out. And can they say this and can they say that? And I think he's been one of those guys that's found his niche and people listen to him.
How's the chemistry between Jaquel and Terquavion in the backcourt?
It's good. You know, a lot of times I haven't played them together a lot because they're both so competitive, so I kind of want them on the other team so they both can lift the other team up. But the times that they played together in Bahamas when they were on the floor together, they seem to work well. You know, we got enough shots in this program to go around, so I don't think that's ever going to be an issue.
From a numbers standpoint, do you see Casey Marcel and Breon Pass playing multiple roles, different positions?
Yeah, I think you're going to see Casey Marcel, who will play some shooting guard and small forward. I think you'll see Breon as a point at times and then off the ball at times. But, you know, I look at Casey as a guy who could possibly be one of the top defenders in our league. You know, strong, he's physical. He's also shooting the ball very well. And I think Breon Pass, we saw just a little bit of what he can do last year. And I think you'll see more of him because he'll have opportunities. So you'll see at times him with Terquavion, and times he's with Jaquel on the floor, and then even with Casey.
You've been around a lot of winning teams and championship teams. How tough personally was last year for you, and what changes did that bring about?
Well, Chip, you know I'm a competitor, and you know I think every coach in the country pours his all his energy and time and effort into the job that they do, and you certainly want to be rewarded at the end. And for me, it was tough. I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you it was one of the toughest seasons, if not the toughest season that I've ever been through in basketball. Very humbling season for me, and you know, as a head coach here at NC State, no matter what the situation was, I take full responsibility of the season that we had, and it's my job to go out and try to correct it. And I think we've done some great things in identifying some of the issues that we had last year, and we've done it through recruiting and bringing the right guys in.
Has that energized you?
Yeah, you know, I don't need, sometimes, I'm energized all the time. And, you know, I'm excited, just excited about this year as I was going into last year. And I don't need a losing season to get me that way, but certainly it helps. You know, I wouldn't lie about that part of it, but, you know, I'm as focused, my attitude's been great. You know, I'm pushing, I've got great people around me that I listen to that are, you know, helping. And a lot of times when you go through a season like that, sometimes you want to turn your back and look at just you. And, you know, I try to surround myself with some folks and players and coaches that certainly want to, you know, obviously get back on the right track. And I think that's important.
How long do assistant coaches doing, and how long did it take working with them to sort of become your new normal?
Yeah, you know, they're doing great. You know, I think all three of those guys are fabulous. And, you know, one thing I wanted to go out and get three guys with tremendous energy. Also three guys that I felt that won't be here long. And I know people don't like to hear that, but, you know, in order to get a great staff, you know, you want guys who can be head coaches. And when you look at when I first started, we had A.W. Hamilton and Takale Siddle, and both of those guys are really doing a good job as Division I head coaches. I love our staff. I love our chemistry. They're working well together. They're bringing tremendous ideas to the table. That's nothing against our old staff. I thought our old staff did some really good things also, the old assistant coaches, but it's good to have some different ideas as we go through this process.
With the new staff, a roster overturned, especially not having to enter a season where you have the NCAA and wondering where that's going on, does it feel like almost a fresh start, just a clean slate?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is the first year that we're going into a year without having that over our head. And I know a lot of people, it's weird because a lot of people look at it that we didn't get hit with postseason play, and they just kind of figured it didn't matter to us or it didn't hurt our program. Man, but for 5 years, it's been a real tough struggle. I feel for those who are still going through it. We're blessed that we have moved past it. Other than the last thing we have is a scholarship reduction. But it's good not to have that. That bothered us, that hurt us through recruiting over the years, and a lot of it was negative recruiting. But now people don't have that, and we can certainly move on without that, you know, hanging over our head. It was a big cloud.
What's the current health status on Greg Gant and Ernest Ross?
So both are full-fledged going, both are full-fledged practicing, both are healthy right now. And you're sitting on some wood, so I want everybody to do is knock on wood. But both guys are doing great. Both guys are, you know, I wouldn't say that they're in great shape right now, you know, but both guys have been in practice full-time and both are doing a good job for us.
Whatever questions you had about your front court coming into this season, have they been answered up to this point?
Yeah, you know, we went out and we got veteran guys. You look at the stats, and man, DJ Burns' stats are so incredible. You know, for 20 minutes of play to average 15 points a game, and obviously to be the player of the year in the Big South. And then Dusan Mahorchik has been around for a long time, and he's done a great job at every stop, and he's a really good basketball player. And then let's not forget the experience that E.B. Dewana was able to get last year by playing and being thrown into the fire. Both him and Jalen Gibson were guys who I didn't think were going to be able to touch the floor until their junior year, and all of a sudden he had to play. And then you had Ernest, and then you had Greg. There was a lot of pieces that we just did not have. And so I like the fact that we have great competition. My teams have always done well when I have 10 or 11 guys or 12 guys and practice is so good and they're so competitive where the games become a little bit easier.
You always talk about DJ Burns' minutes. What can you do to get him to X amount of minutes? What is your goal for him from a conditioning standpoint, from a not getting into foul trouble standpoint, to get him on the court as much as humanly possible?
Well, I told him if he gets in great shape, he'll play 40 minutes a game. So he should be excited about that. No, he's working extremely hard. He is. He may be, and I don't have the stats. He may have been the most efficient post player, or maybe even the player in college basketball last year. And he's working hard to get in great shape. And great shape is different for everybody. It comes down to what's great shape for him. And he certainly is effective. One of the things that I've learned over the last month or so is that he's a very underrated passer too, and he's a willing passer. He can score the ball, but he's willing to make the right play.
What differences do you see with the big men working with a 6'8" Levi Watkins?
I think it's good. I mean, Levi can get out there and mix it up a little bit. I'm not saying he's in Levi Watkins shape from back in the day, but he'll give him a good hard 2 minutes and get after it a little bit. But these guys are different now. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and everything else. But I'm so excited to have Levi, on our staff. To get a former player who's been through it, who's won, and then also you look at Kareem's track record of being a head coach, and Joel, the same thing. Joel's come from great programs, and I think those guys are going to bring a lot to our program.
The way things are now, which is more intense and and time consuming, recruiting the high school kids like it used to be, or now recruiting the transfer portal?
Everything,
Looking
Chip.
for new guys.
Everything, Chip. I know a lot of you guys you've covered me since I've been here, and I'm going into year 6. Whatever you covered the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth year, scratch it. It's different. It's when you talk about transfers and immediate eligibility, and you throw in NIL. Recruitment has completely changed from what it used to be, and so all of them become a challenge. It's a 365 7 days a week, and I'm recruiting, and I don't say that because I'm disappointed about it. You have to adjust to whatever the environment is at the time, and I'm certainly a guy who loves to recruit anyway, and so we've had to make adjustments to everything.
Along those lines, how difficult was it to try to use every scholarship this offseason?
You mean this past year?
Yeah.
To get to the 12 we have? How difficult was it?
Yeah.
Not difficult. I wanted 12. I needed 14. I wanted 15 or 16. But like I said, JC, one of the things that, and people don't understand over the last couple of years is that when you're down a scholarship and everybody said, man, it's just a scholarship, doesn't mean anything. That's not right. You're down a scholarship and then you get a couple guys injured. We went through this thing called COVID, and some guys were out for a little bit. And so all of a sudden, when you got 12, then you may be down to 8 or 9 scholarship guys, and it's hard to practice. It's hard to compete. At one point last year, I became one of the best 4-on-4 guys in the country. We were trying to practice with some guys, and that was just something, that was another thing that I've never had to do in my life, because we would have more players than less. And for the first time, I was faced with that. And so certainly I wanted, if I could get as many guys as we can, in an NC State uniform to practice, I think it helps. And then obviously, as you got down to those 8 or 9 guys that would practice, you were trying to figure out now how to wear them down so you really couldn't get chemistry, because you couldn't go as hard as you wanted to.
And along those lines, how talented are your walk-ons this year?
Well, man, I got one parent that's just crushing me, and her name is Georgette. She's crushing me. I tell you one thing, it's hard. It's really hard. My son and I got a tremendous relationship, and my wife and I, man, we're strong in 22 years of marriage. But it's the first time now when she's got a chance to be a parent, and she's gonna talk trash to me about her son, which is different. I don't know what she's gonna say when if I yell at KJ and he comes home and say, hey, Daddy just yelled. Oh, will he say Daddy? He may say Coach, I don't know, but he just yelled at me. So it's different. I'm having fun. I'm excited. Just having my son around me and being able to see him every day, man, that means a lot. And I'm excited that he's with us. And we had a choice as a family to whether he was going to come to NC State and be a part of our team, or whether we're gonna send him to prep school. He missed his first year with a torn labrum, and then he went through, the COVID years, and, the decision was, it was really on him, and he loved our team, and he loved being around our team, and we decided to get there. So I think our walk-ons are gonna help. I know I can't get rid of one of them, I know that, so.
When you were talking about last year being humbling, it was a difficult experience, some of that's beyond your control, is like Manny in the first minute. And then there are things probably you look back and you say, maybe I could have done this differently or whatever. Kind of how do you balance that part of sometimes things go wrong, and then some of it's what can you do better, I guess, when you reflected on yourself?
Yeah, you know what I did? After a while, and I'm the toughest on myself than anybody, I go back after the season and I spend 2 or 3 weeks and listen to everything and think back and replay and watch a lot of film. After I got to that stage, I stopped having, I decided, I'm gonna turn the page. And I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna recruit as hard as I can. I'm gonna address the needs that I think that we need to have. And, Manny it was a tough loss for us because we thought we were gonna have a veteran guy. And then we never thought that we wouldn't have Greg Gant. And then Ernest Ross went through his deal. And so all of that being said, is there a couple things I could have done better from a coaching standpoint? Possibly. But I didn't think we had the pieces. And, a lot of times we were trying to survive and stay in a lot of those games just because we didn't. But at the end of the day, I hope and trust my instincts, and my instincts were to try to go out and fix some of those issues. Nobody takes the blame more than me. No matter how it looks, I take it on the chin, and I don't try to, put it on anybody. I thought the kids were fabulous. They gave me everything that they could ever give me, and it's up to me to fix it. First losing season ever in my career, and that was tough, and I didn't like it, and so I had to make some adjustments.
Big picture.
Yeah.
It feels like sometimes the rules kind of get changed midstream. Like they're moving the goalposts on you. Transfers could be eligible. Transfers are not supposed to be ineligible. Can't do it, 2 times in 4 years, and yet then everybody gets a waiver. Do you kind of sometimes look at, how they use official visits rules and how they use the transfer rules and be like, okay, how are we supposed to build a roster at times when we don't know if they're even going to be eligible, and then all of a sudden they get a waiver like 3-4 months later?
Yeah, I think, and I hope I probably speak for a lot of coaches, not everyone, but if you can't adapt to what's going on right now, it's probably time for you to look at a different career, because it has completely changed. The way you guys have to cover has changed. It's completely different. I wish I had, we have this, 28 visits in 2 years. With the ability to bring young kids on a visit, and with the ability for so many guys to transfer, I wish we would go to and look at saying, hey, there should be unlimited visits. You use it as you may. The other thing I would love to see at some point is that, we get 3 coaches that can go off the 3 assistant coaches and myself that can go and recruit. I wish we get to the point where you got a staff, you send anybody out that you want to. And I do think we will get to some of those rules at this point. I don't know that they're there right now, but it becomes a challenge because you have to figure out, all right, who do you bring in, and do you have a chance to get those guys right away, or are you wasting visits doing those things? And it's a good mixture, and we have a unique place here. I love NC State, but we also have to find guys who fit what we're trying to do and fit the culture of the school, and so it's a complete balancing act.
With the 28 visits, I'm guessing that rule was created before juniors were allowed to visit, and before you might have to use 8 to 10 official visits for the portal.
I don't know if it was created before the juniors, but it was definitely created before guys can transfer and not play right away. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the changes that you said that you had to make with yourself coming off your first losing season? Like anything specific that you can share with us?
Yeah, I don't think it was anything that I would say that I go back, and if we would have won every game we played last year, I would have done the same thing. But when you lose, and I don't know if you've been through any of that stuff in your life, or you have something that you didn't like, you go back and you look at it a little bit more. And I don't think I can point to one thing, but it was a lot of things that I said, hey, you know what? Maybe I could have done this. Maybe I could have brought a little bit more energy. And I'm an energy guy, so for me to say that, that's tough. But at the end of the thing, I don't think it's any one thing. I just look at the entire, my job as a CEO of NC State basketball is to look at the entire program and see where I can help. You know, obviously, you know, make sure that our kids are in the best situation that they can be in. And that's what we've done. One of the biggest things is identifying and getting more players, and obviously helping and have a little bit more depth at each position. I think that was better for me.
But nothing specifically when it comes to your coaching tactics?
No, I mean, you know, coaches are creatures of habit. Yeah, could I have switched defense? Could I have ran another play? 100%. But we're creatures of habit. We can get better at what our system is, and obviously I always go back in our system and say, can I figure out how to make our system better, tweak it a little bit.
What are the biggest things you learned in the Bahamas, just from a basketball standpoint, with all these new players that you're trying to get to play together?
You know, I learned that our veteran guys can help us. You know, I've said this a long time in the ACC, and I got caught with it last year. I said it's really hard to win with a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And when you look back at our last year's team, all of our guards, all of them, all four that we played were freshmen and sophomores. And you know, it was good because we've been able not to skip steps, but we've been able to accelerate a lot of the stuff that we would do because we have some older guys who have been in college, you know, been away from home a little bit. They've been coached by some really good coaches. And I just seeing those guys, veteran guys now, we had three of the four because Dusan didn't make the trip. But just seeing those guys and adding those guys and, you know, being able to see where they can bring value. And, you know, just, you know, last year we really struggled because of our young post, and it was so much pressure on Taquavion Smith and so much pressure on Darion Sebron to be able to score from outside because we didn't have, you know, couldn't get easy baskets because our bigs were so young and inexperienced. But now when you go to practice, you can throw the ball in and those guys can make plays. They can make plays for themselves or they can find other guys. So that gives us an added dimension that we didn't have. So to go back to the original question, just to have the veterans mix in with the young guys and just see our guys having fun, and I think that was the biggest thing for me.
How has it been shaking off the rust with LJ Thomas?
Say that again.
How have you kind of helped shake off the rust with LJ Thomas?
Well, I think LJ's going to be fine. You know, even though he didn't play last year, he was one of those guys that worked out all the time. And he's like every freshman. He's a sponge. He's picking up on stuff. He's getting better in a lot of areas. He's another guy that I like that can play multiple positions. So we'll see him play some 1 and 2 this year.
I'm just going to ask you about the defensive part. Obviously, when Manny went out, you lost a ton. What's your outlook as far as this team being able to defend better than the group last year?
Well, it was different. We had the leading shot block in the country that we thought was coming back, and so our philosophies and how we try to guard the ball was a little bit different because in the past we could really pressure, and even when we flushed guards to the hole, you know, Manny was back there to clean it up. So I think, you know, so you guys know, I think I'm going to play 100% zone this year. I've been looking at a lot of tape of Syracuse, and if you're going to play a zone, I think it's going to be, you know, Coach Boeheim's got a tremendous zone, so I think I'm going to play a lot of zone this year. Write that down.
It's pretty good zone.
You don't believe me, but write that down.
They play pretty good zone.
They do play a pretty good zone, and I'm not saying that our zone is going to be as good as theirs, but we're going to.
You've always been good at kind of projecting the ACC.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the ACC this year?
I'm not good at it this year because there's so many different, you know, different.
Do you need rosters?
I do need rosters. Like when I go to ACC Media Day, I'm hoping they bring 2 guys that I know. So each team, so I can introduce them. So, and I, you know, because you don't know, you don't know, and I'm not saying it's just not the ACC. It's everywhere. You know, and that's the way, that's the norm. You know, a lot of people will get mad when you say it's going to be hard to get guys who start at a school as a freshman and actually graduate. It's even harder when you're at the Power 5 level because they're either going to be going to be a pro or they're going to even transfer if they don't play a lot. So it's tough. Just to get a 4-year guy now, it's really tough. And I may have had my last 4-year guy with Jericho. That may be my last 4-year guy. I don't know that. I hope that's not the case, but there is a big possibility that will be the case.
Can NIL change that?
Say that again?
Get NIL changed?
I think so. I mean, you know, I think everybody's situation is different. You know, Darion Sebron's situation is different than Tequavion, and that's a lot comes down to, you know, whether a kid really loves academics and wants to be in school. You know, we never know what their family situation is or what pressure they have from back home, and so I think it's different. It would be unfair to say because one guy may look at it one different than the other guy.